As you and pretty much the rest of the world know, Apple just announced the Apple Vision Pro. But the main thing that they showed was entertainment, FaceTime, messages, everything that basically an iPad mini or an Apple Watch can do. And that's cool, but if you're anything like me, you were thinking, how can I use this for my work? Is there somewhere where I can actually make use of this thing that's going to cost me $3.5 grand? And I had a really cool thought. I thought, well, what if it could take me from sitting at my desk, crippling my posture, to standing in the middle of my living room, flying through editing photos like I'm Tony Stark building a new suit. So what do photographers like us want from a piece of tech like this? We want three things: efficiency, simplicity, and reliability. Can I use it to the same pace I do as my iPhone or iPad or MacBook? And then the next step being simplicity. It needs to be simple to use. Now, I don't want to have to learn a whole new UI just to use something that I was already using really well before. And then reliability. I need to know that this thing's going to work all the time. I mean, let's face it, it's from Apple. It's going to be reliable, so I've got no question about that part. So basically what they showed us so far in terms of editing software and things like that and work was that if we was to look at our laptop screen, we'd just be able to connect to that and use a massive augmented reality display that's however big we want it to be. But at the end of the day, you still need to use a mouse and keyboard to operate that. There was none of this reaching out, grabbing sliders and tapping things, and trust me, it was extremely minimal. They didn't want to let up on anything on that side. And trust me, when the dust settles, people are going to quickly realize that this is just an iPad mini you can stand in. But let's take a look at what it could be with a few updates a couple of years down the line, maybe a few months, if they open up their software to creators like Adobe. Imagine putting yourself in a giant Lake District scenario, having this massive IMAX display to edit photos, and all you're doing is just looking at tabs and doing stuff with your fingers and all that. That to me sounds it sounds amazing. I would do that. But seriously, what do we generally do when we edit photos in Lightroom? We import the photos and then we edit one and then we copy and paste that edit over all the other batch. And then we go through and tweak all the other photos of exposure and things like that. Now imagine that in the glasses. You can just take a look at the presets tab, you can just open a tab with your eyes and a pinch and a slide and on all these different gestures. It sounds very gimmicky saying it out loud, but however, I think it makes editing stuff fun. And I get that a lot of people out there are going to be like, well, editing's not supposed to be fun, it's work, just get it done as quickly as possible so I can go back to creating more stuff. What if every step of the workflow could be fun? Shooting's fun, editing's What if editing was as fun as shooting? And I think Apple has a really big opportunity here to make that part of the process fun again. Okay, so how is it good for photographers and how is it bad for photographers? At the end of the day, it's a new UI to learn. That's the biggest thing. We're gonna have to learn how to use something completely new and get used to a whole new layout. And let's face it, whenever they port things to other devices, it's always like a really watered down version. I mean, look at the Photoshop app for iPad. It is just bleh. It's just horrible. All those keyboard shortcuts we had before now no longer work. We've got to find another way around it, and it's just going to be a mess. That's the biggest thing I can see getting in the way of this new form of editing and workflow. Now, how is it good for us? A bigger display is always better, so seeing your images and your videos and anything that you create on a massive display is just always so inspiring to look at. The next thing is physically interacting with a piece of work, editing photos with your fingers and grabbing sliders and walking up to it and standing at different angles and really getting a feel for your work. I think it can really create a more personal feel with more work. And I think it's something close to how film is. Like, we love the way film looks because it has such a real look to it. Now imagine being stood physically with that project and molding it with your hands in real time in your space. And then of course, will it affect the way that we consume content, watching movies and YouTube videos and things like that? Me personally, being able to put myself in the middle of a desert while watching Mad Max would be quite literally the ultimate cinema experience. Or in the middle of a jungle watching Jurassic Park. How crazy would that be? I don't think I'd ever watch another piece of content on any other platform again. I'd never use my phone, I'd never use a TV, I'd never go to the cinema. I'd just wait for it to come out and watch it on the biggest screen possible in the environment I wanted to. So right now, it doesn't seem feasible for the average person like you and me to shell out $3.5 grand on something that basically our iPads can do. If our iPads, Macs and phones can already do it so well, why do we need a $3.5 grand extension of that? But the release date is set to be early 2024, so there is still time for them to make these tweaks, take on board all the things that people are now going to be saying about it, seeing as they've showed it to us, push it and try and get something extra out there for 2024. If they do what I mentioned earlier with Lightroom, where you can look at stuff and just pinch and grab and slide, works just as fast as it would do with a Mac, sign me up. I would have it day one pre-ordered. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you get it? Now, if you want to master Lightroom before you get a pair of goggles, make sure you watch this video. Civvy.